Before Thomas Cromwell, there was a man so powerful, people genuinely wondered whether England had two kings. One wore the crown, the other wore scarlet silk and pure, unchecked confidence. Welcome back, my darlings, to Wed and Behead, where ambition is always fatal eventually, and surviving Henry VIII requires the emotional stability of a raccoon trapped inside a burning cathedral. I am Lady Thorn, and tonight we discuss the rise and spectacular collapse of the man who once controlled England itself, Cardinal Thomas Wolsey. Cardinal, diplomat, political mastermind, human warning label. This was Henry's closest advisor, most trusted servant, and favorite companion for nearly 20 years. And then one day, Henry decided he was disposable, as kings so often do. Now, Wolsey did not begin life draped in velvet and gold chains. No. He was born the son of a butcher in Ipswich, which already irritated the nobility because Tudor aristocrats believed competence should only exist in people with ancient bloodlines and at least 3 emotionally damaged ancestors. But Wolsey was brilliant, dangerously brilliant. He raced through Oxford so quickly they called him the boy bachelor, which sounds less like an academic achievement and more like a deeply unfortunate Tudor dating show. He entered the church because in Tudor England, if you were clever and poor, the church was basically linked in with candles. And Wolsey climbed fast, very fast, because he possessed the single most valuable skill in Henry's court. He knew exactly how to make powerful men feel important. When young Henry took the throne, he was dazzling, athletic, handsome, charming, and not yet fully transformed into England's angriest, overfed execution enthusiast. Henry wanted glory, war, prestige, attention. Wolsey delivered all of it. The two became inseparable politically. Wolsey handled the exhausting parts of ruling, while Henry focused on tournaments, flirting, hunting, and generally behaving like a Renaissance frat king with unlimited resources. And honestly, Henry loved him for it. Soon, Wolsey becomes Lord Chancellor. At this point, he is no longer simply advising the king. He is the government. Foreign ambassadors bow to him. Nobles fear him. Servants scramble when he walks by. The man builds Hampton Court Palace so extravagantly it practically screams, "I have absolutely forgotten my place." Gold everywhere, massive feasts, lavish clothing, an entire lifestyle dripping in untouchable, which is usually the first stage of disaster. Now, let us discuss the aristocracy. The nobles despised Wolsey. Not quietly, not politely, not in a restrained, mature fashion. They hated him with the passion of people forced to watch a commoner outperform them daily, because Wolsey was not born one of them. And worse, Henry trusted him more than them. Imagine being an ancient duke with 20 titles and a castle full of moldy ancestors, only to lose influence to the butcher's son in red robes. Humiliating. And then Anne Boleyn enters the story, which is usually when Tudor history stops being politics and starts becoming a 5-alarm psychological crisis. Henry becomes obsessed with Anne Boleyn, not mildly interested, not flirtatious. Obsessed. The problem? Henry is already married to Catherine of Aragon, and the Pope refuses to grant an annulment. Now Henry turns to Wolsey and essentially says, "Fix this immediately," which is rather like handing someone a lit cannon and saying, "Do be careful." Wolsey tries everything: negotiations, delays, pressure, legal arguments, diplomatic maneuvering. But Europe is a political minefield because Catherine of Aragon just happens to be related to Emperor Charles V, one of the most powerful men in existence. And the Pope? Terrified. So the annulment drags on, and drags on, and drags on. Meanwhile, Henry grows increasingly furious, impatient, and emotionally stable in the way thunderstorms are emotionally stable. Now, Anne Boleyn cannot stand Wolsey. She sees him as the obstacle between herself and the crown, and Anne Boleyn did not handle obstacles gently. So while Henry fumes, Anne whispers, quietly, carefully, constantly, and soon Henry begins looking at Wolsey differently, not as the brilliant advisor who built his reign, but as the man who failed him, which is far more dangerous. Suddenly, Wolsey's enemies descend like starving vultures wearing jewelry. Charges appear, power evaporates, friends vanish. It is amazing how quickly loyalty dies when Henry stops smiling at you. Wolsey is stripped of office, his magnificent palaces seized, his authority shattered, his influence gone. One moment, he is practically ruling England. The next, he is simply another frightened man waiting for Henry's temper to finish the job. And then comes the truly tragic part. Wolsey is ordered to London on charges of treason. Now everyone knows what that means. Nobody hears Henry VIII and treason in the same sentence and expects a retirement party. Wolsey begins the journey south, sick, exhausted, and fully aware of where this road ends. But he never reaches execution. He collapses before arriving in London, and with his final words, he delivers one of the coldest lines in Tudor history. "Had I served God as diligently as I have served the king, he would not have given me over in my gray hairs." Which is Tudor language for, wow, that was absolutely not worth it. Cardinal Wolsey spent years building Henry into the center of England's universe. He gave him victories, power, luxury, and control. And in the end, none of it mattered, because serving Henry was rather like hugging a jeweled bear trap. Eventually, it closes. So remember, my darlings, in Tudor England, the king's affection could raise you higher than anyone else in the realm and destroy you even faster. Next time we gather, we meet a woman who survived Anne Boleyn, betrayed Catherine Howard, and somehow managed to become one of the most infamous gossips in Tudor history. Yes, it is finally time for Jane Boleyn. And trust me, that woman could weaponize a whisper. Now, my darlings, as always, remember to keep your crown straight and your head attached.